But first, I'd like to introduce our also very dedicated Consul General Island, Frank Flood, who's going to speak a little bit about we have to talk about it, the COVID situation in Ireland, and also travel to Ireland. So I will introduce Mr. Frank Flood. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Sue, and Dí Acorda. Welcome, everybody, from wherever you are in Canada and in Ireland. And I join Sue in thanking the Irish participants for staying up so late. And hopefully you'll find this useful and will be able to contribute. I came to Vancouver 3 years ago, and we opened up this lovely new consulate last year, which is on the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh people. And as you can see, the consulate represents modern Ireland and our friendship with Canada, because it's bright, it's friendly, and we made sure to have plenty of maple wood all through it to remind everybody that we are in beautiful BC and beautiful Vancouver. The consulate has three objectives. One is to promote good relations between Ireland and Canada, which I must say that's an easy push, an easy job. We also have a very strong and growing and vibrant Irish community here in Vancouver. We had 500 at their GAA finals on Saturday in Burnaby. And of course, to help to promote trade, investment and tourism between Ireland and Canada, which is growing very significantly. And it is in this context that we have Sue Butler, Ireland's first ever senior educational consultant for Canada. And she joined us in May and is leading us today. And she is an absolute pleasure to work with, a great resource, and has already made a huge difference in our whole approach to promoting educational linkages between Ireland and Canada. And I hope today's event will help continue and support the efforts that Sue is making and Enterprise Ireland in general. Of course, Ireland, as some of you may know, some may not know, this was known in the medieval ages as the land of saints and scholars. And I'm not so sure about the saints these days, but we still have a lot of scholars in Ireland. And of course, it is the land of Yeats and Shaw and Beckett and Seamus Heaney, and of course, somebody called James Joyce. So it is a huge interest in education, and there always has been an interest in education in Ireland. Unfortunately, in the past, sometimes we had to educate for people to emigrate. But now, of course, Ireland is a vibrant economy. According to UNDP index and the quality of living, Ireland is number 2 in the world in the 2020 rankings, just after Norway. And of course, as part of the presentation, you will see that we have most of the tech companies have their HQ for Europe in Ireland. We have our Googles, we have our Microsofts, we have our Apples, we have our Intels. And 9 out of 10 pharmaceutical companies and major pharmaceutical companies are in Ireland. So much so that our economy actually grew by 3% last year, where most of their economies in Europe and throughout the world went backwards. Ireland managed to grow. But Ireland growing is a theme these days, the last 20 years, thanks be to God. And it's seen an awful lot of social changes. So it isn't just the economy that's grown, it's the Ireland society that's grown. And in 2015, we were the first country in the world to hold a public plebiscite and to vote in same-sex marriage. The Ireland of today is an Ireland that 20% of the people working in Ireland were not born on the island of Ireland. 20% of our population is actually immigrated overseas and comes to such places as Canada. And of course, it's a very young population. Ireland has the youngest population in the EU and also has the highest educated population in the age group of 25 to 35 in the EU. So there is this very vibrant country, which at the end of the day still retains an awful lot of its love for culture and an awful lot of its characteristics. One of which, of course, is that we have a Céad Míle Fáilte. We have 100,000 welcomes. We all love our welcomes. We love visitors, and we particularly love Canadians. And all visitors in Ireland will get a red carpet treatment and get a big welcome and a big smile. And your students will, of course. But if they hear they're from Canada, being perfectly honest, they roll out the second red carpet. The only problem is they might ask the students if they know Johnny Murphy from Vancouver, who's their second cousin, or if they've run into Sue Butler when they were over there. But the Ireland will never change fundamentally. It is a very, very welcoming country. We're there to make our visitors and our students feel at home. And most people will go out of their way to make sure your students are well taken care of, enjoy themselves, see the country, get out and about, meet people, and get a good education. So you have a very strong education focus, which is very vibrant, culturally vibrant, and friendly environment for your students, a very safe student as well. I suppose I should move on to the slides because Sue gave me a bit of work to do, so I have to do my work, otherwise Sue will be giving me a hard time. And what of the pandemic? The pandemic, like in Ireland, as in most countries, has been some experience. We've taken a very scientific-based approach to dealing with the pandemic. We have made some mistakes, as we all have done during this time, but it has been a science-based approach. And particularly where Ireland was one of the first countries to really push on the vaccination side of things. So through the efforts of the government and through the efforts of the Irish people, there's very few anti-vaxxers in Ireland. Last Friday, the country reached the target of 90% of all those eligible for vaccinations are now double vaccinated. We took a very similar approach to BC, being honest with you, but it differed in Canada in two fundamental ways. One, Ireland went through, from an approach, we always went for the double vaccination straight away. We didn't go for the single vaccination followed by the double vaccination. We went for the double vaccination from the very beginning. So even though the numbers, you may see high COVID numbers at the moment of about 1,400, the fact that 90% of the population is vaccinated means there's very few people ending in hospital, and there were very few relatively in ICU. We have about 60 in ICU at the moment. And it is plateauing in the fourth wave, and it is beginning to come down, fortunately. So we do take the vaccination serious, and that's opening the doors for the travel. We welcome visitors from Canada and from the US. And of course, one of the key things we do is with most jurisdictions these days, we have an electronic tracking device for knowing who's coming into the countries and what their situation is. And it's called an unusual name, personally, that's mine, the passenger locator form. And basically it's to help us locate who's coming in, where they're coming from, and where they are now. But that must be done beforehand. And it's all right, it's similar to ArriveCan. And it's very straightforward, very easy to fill out. And once you do that, you can get on the flight. Provided you're either double vaccinated, and we don't mix vaccines in Ireland. So if it's the AstraZeneca, it should be 2 AstraZenecas. Or Moderna or Pfizer, it has to be the same twice. If not, then the students will be required to take a PCR test 72 hours before they arrive, and that would be fine. But we would strongly urge you for the students to have the double vaccination using the same vaccine when they go to Ireland. And the same as it is now in BC and in Ontario, people will be asked for proof of their vaccinations when they want to enter the restaurants, the bars, or private spaces. But in general, the situation is doing really well in Ireland at the moment. We're still opening up slowly. We haven't opened up to the major concerts or public events, but everything is going well, and we expect it to stay that way. And at the end of the day, I think we all just have to live, unfortunately, with COVID-19 for some time, and Ireland will continue to use a science-based approach, and we will continue to use the vaccinations, and we will continue to move ahead and try to make the world as close to the old world as it can be. But in any event, I'm sure that your students will always find a friendly voice, someone that'll be able to point them in the right direction, and someone that will be able to take care of them. And if there's ever anything that the consulate in Vancouver can do for you, please do, or the embassy in Ottawa, please never hesitate to contact us. You'll find the Irish the most user-friendly people, and we'll always do our utmost to make sure that whoever comes to Ireland have a great time, enjoy themselves, and whatever it is they want to achieve, to get it done while they're in Ireland. So, for the meal, with Claire, thank you very much, and I'm back to Sue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank. You stole a lot of my thunder, but that's okay, because it's always worth repeating stuff sometimes, because it's a lot of information about Ireland. I started by the way, I missed the introduction, my name is Sue Butler. I'm the BC-based rep for education in Ireland, and it's been a bit of a learning curve for me, but I've learned a lot, and very excited about what's going on in Ireland. As Frank said, there's a lot of energy, a lot of young people, a lot of companies, a lot of opportunity. But I'll just launch in right now to campus reopening, which is similar to what is happening in Canada in terms of, yes, we have, I guess I have to minimize that. Yes, we have hygiene, face masks are same as in Canada, testing and vaccination, same as institutions in Canada. One thing I noticed is I don't think at Canadian institutions they've minimized class size so much because of the mask, but they have in Ireland, they've minimized class size, also the timing of classes, so that there's not big congregation in halls and things like that when classes are over. So they've managed to schedule that to minimize or mitigate large gatherings of people. I should also add that any student, any person in Ireland, if they need testing or diagnosis or treatment, that's no problem. They will get it from the Irish Health Education or Health Services at no cost. In addition, service they're providing this year is free greet and transfer service from Dublin Airport. So a welcome committee will meet you at the airport and transfer you to your accommodation. It is free, but you do need to book about at least 7 days before your arrival, so they know you're coming. And it's free to new as well as continuing students arriving in Dublin Airport. And I do know there's direct flights, so you don't have to go through a second country to get to Dublin. There's direct flights from Toronto, so you could go Vancouver, Toronto, or direct from Toronto right to Dublin without having to go through a second terminal. And why Ireland? Well, lots of reasons. Small population compared to Canada, but a very young population. A third of the population is under 25 years of age. And they also are one of the most well-educated population in Ireland. So in addition, since Brexit, they're the only English-speaking country now in the EU, which is pretty a big deal. Easy access to Europe, 30 minutes to London, 90 minutes to Paris, 2 hours to Madrid. Anyone who's a Game of Thrones fan will notice the third image there. That's the King's Road in Westeros. And anybody who's been to Galway or knows anything about Ireland, the first image is in Connemara, which is north of Galway. And it's one of the places you can go in Ireland that you can still hear Irish being spoken. So it's all pretty cool. And another question, why Ireland? The institutions are high quality. So 5% of the university or Ireland's universities are ranked in the 5% globally. They're renowned for their close links with industry. An example is Apple, which has been in Cork for over 40 years. It employs 6,000 people from 90 different nationalities. And Cork is the second largest city in Ireland. However, when you compare it with cities in Canada, it'd be comparable to Kelowna or Nanaimo in BC or St. Catharines in Ontario. So that's a pretty significant bump in terms of exposure to a big corporation in a small town and what you can experience from that. And again, if Canadian students can have experience working at companies like this, they can also stay and work after for at least 1 year. Frank mentioned, and I will reiterate, high quality of education and also research. All the top 10 pharmaceutical industries, including Pfizer, are based in Ireland. So they're first in immunology, second in agricultural science, fifth in both neuroscience and material science. So that helps a lot with their education and economic success in terms of driving industry, having exposure for students to co-op experiences, as well as continuing with the, as Frank said, their economic growth. And the education structure, so there are 10, it's compared to Ireland, Canada, of course, it's a smaller country. There are 10 universities, 7 institutes of technology, 7 private colleges. There will be an 11th because they recently have been combining a lot of the technological universities into universities. So there'll be a 11th added on in, it's called the University of the Shannon, based in Limerick, I believe, on the 1st of October. Large number of international students go there because of the extensive range of courses, everything from culinary arts to a PhD in chemical engineering. So lots of opportunities. And because of the hub, the industry hub there, they're home to over 1,000 leading multinational companies. So these are highly integrated with the institutions, which leads to opportunities for continuing students as well as graduates. For example, 9 of the 10 top technology companies are in Ireland. All of the top pharmaceutical companies are there, top 5 global software companies, 14 of the top 15 medical technology companies, 8 of the top 10 industrial automation companies, and 8 of the 10 top world financial companies are based in Ireland. So amazing, vibrant place for students, young people to land and be connected and get really relevant experience at a young age. Now I'm going to hand it over to my young friend, Sean Ryan, who has recently arrived in Toronto. I'll see if I can get him up here. And he's going to speak a little bit about his experience and the application and admission process. And if you have additional questions about the admission and application process, we do have some higher education professionals on board. So just please put your questions in the chat and they'll be happy to answer your questions. But Sean's a living, breathing former student and co-op student and now employee. So I'll let you take it away, Sean.
Thanks, Sue. Hi, hopefully everyone can hear me okay. But yeah, great to be on the line today. Pleasure to talk to you. My name is Sean Ryan and I work with the Education in Ireland and Enterprise Ireland team in Toronto. So I've just recently arrived here a couple of weeks now, so still getting settled in. But today I'm going to talk through the application process first for students from Canada. And then personally, for me, what would be probably one of the biggest benefits of studying in Ireland through the internship and placement opportunities with some of the institutions. So firstly, just to talk through the application process and requirements. For Irish-based students, Ireland operates a point-based system. So it's named the CAO. So points are based on grades that are achieved in state exams. And as a result, courses can be quite competitive for places. So it's largely based on supply and demand, which makes some subjects and disciplines like medicine, veterinary medicine, economics and finance pretty competitive to get places on. So however, on the applicants outside of the EU, they can apply directly through the colleges or universities themselves, depending on the choice of where they'd like to study. So it's worth noting, first of all, that this is based on residency as opposed to nationality. So a big topic of interest for Canadian students, obviously, is medical entry. So all medical applications are for the most part would be processed through Atlantic Bridge, which is a centralized application process for North American students specifically. So institutions in Ireland, such as Trinity College, UCC, University College Cork, National University of Ireland Galway, which is NUIG, the Royal College of Surgeons Ireland, and UCD, University College Dublin, and University of Limerick, through their graduate entry, would provide medical courses for students. So they're generally 5 or 6 year degree programs for high school students, and offer 4-year post-degree entry programs also. So the application is generally open from mid-December through to February 1st, but some late applications are accepted if their space is still available. And so we're lucky to have on the line today quite a few of the representatives for North America from each of the institutions. And so if you want to direct questions towards ourselves from the Education in Ireland team, you can either check out the website or put some questions in the chat and some of the guys would be happy to answer. Next slide, please, Sue. Thank you. So a major benefit of studying in Ireland, as Sue alluded to, is the links to industry and the opportunities that provides to students as a result of that through either co-op placements, internships and work experience. So as Sue said, Ireland's a hub that attracts some of the world's leading companies from several industries. So you can see, I won't name the companies there, but they're on the screen if you'd like to take a read, many of which have their headquarters in Ireland. So with such, as Sue alluded to, a lot collaborate closely with education institutions in Ireland and the local communities to provide students with opportunities for employment. So a lot of the institutions in Ireland would have a centralised model where they'd work with students to secure placements in some of the top companies that they'd have on their systems. So I myself, I studied in Dublin City University and studied a Bachelor of Business Studies programme. So during my 3rd year, I was lucky enough to secure a placement through a system named Intra that DCU runs and completed a year-long placement with Enterprise Ireland. So Enterprise Ireland is the state agency that's responsible for supporting Irish startups and SMEs to internationalise, and it's actually where I currently work. So I was lucky enough to work in the life sciences and engineering team to help companies in these sectors to increase their exports to international markets. So through the placement, I was really lucky to meet a lot of people from all over the world, which was a great experience as a student. I took ownership of a lot of projects. So for example, I had to organise a large-scale medtech conference in Ireland, and I got to participate in ministerial trade missions, and then obviously on the one-to-one work that I'd had with several companies, and this is really beneficial for me as a student. So I'd say personally from this experience, it set me up really well for returning into final year. So obviously the fact that it was within my 3rd year of my 4-year degree, I went back into final year then with actual experience that I could put into practice as opposed to just learning theory in classes. So in addition to this, several companies actually offer students employment upon completing their degree. So this didn't happen for me, to be honest, personally. I had to reapply through another program for a graduate program. But I have plenty of friends that would have been offered placements, which meant that upon completion of the degree, then they could return to work for where they had done their placement with. So as I mentioned, it's not just DCU that runs such programs. A lot of the institutions across Ireland will be really well renowned for their co-op placements or their internships that they provide students. So it's worth checking out with regards to each discipline, what's on offer and what courses they have to work with your students. So I'll pass back to Sue now to talk through Erasmus next. You're just on mute there, Sue. I think you're on mute, Sue.
Sorry, Sue, we can't hear you.
So you're on mute, Sue.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good to go now. Thank you. Yeah, one of the advantages of studying in Ireland, you can hear me now, right? Good old Zoom, is that Canadian students can enhance their undergraduate studies by studying in not just one, but 2 European countries. So if you're familiar with Erasmus, it's an opportunity for Canadian students to get not one, but a different experience in a country where English might not be the first language. So Spain or Italy, France, Germany, a lot of Irish institutions have partners with that. An example is University College Dublin, which has 40 partners in Spain alone. So fantastic opportunity for students to, after their first year, anywhere from 3 months to 12 months, including an internship, apply for apply for Erasmus and study in another institution. And costs. So these are in Canadian dollars, and different programs cost different fees. It tends to, the health sciences cost a little bit more. So a student can expect, depending on their lifestyle, between 10 and 24,000, and average cost for living for the year is around 37,000 Canadian dollars. And there are scholarships available. Most of the scholarships are institutional based. There are some Government of Ireland scholarships, but we encourage you for your students to look at the institution they're interested in and look at their websites for what scholarships are open, because there are hundreds out there. Alternatively, you can also contact the North American rep, who would be more familiar and would be plugged into what's available for Canadian students in terms of scholarships for them to apply. So merit-based, full and partial scholarships, as well as students can apply, if they have it, RESP funding to study in Ireland, and Canadian student loans. So most of the institutions in Ireland are recognized by provincial student loan authorities. And really encouraging you to plug our virtual fair. If you could tell the students, their parents, it's 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 1 to 5 Eastern Daylight Time in Ontario. And they could drop in for an hour, talk to an institution of their choosing or more. Some of the institutions available are here on this website. You can also check out the www.educationIreland.ca to meet some of the colleges, but they'll be available to talk to you, answer your questions in private. Wonderful opportunity to learn about education in Ireland. Also, we'll have some seminars available. So we'll have some student panels that might be of interest to some of the counselors as well as the students. We'll have some representatives from medical schools in Ireland talking about opportunities for medicine and application, how the qualifications transfer back to Canada, because they have a lot of experience with that. We'll also have some representatives from Irish institutions talking about financial aid, how the student loan process works for Canadian students, and scholarships. And finally, we'll have institutions talking about what Sean mentioned, but it's very prolific in terms of internships and work experience with companies in Ireland. So really encourage students to check this out, because often I know working in a BC institution, it's sometimes hard for students to get really good placements, but because of the really large number of companies based in Ireland and the young population, there's lots of opportunities for students to get relevant work experience with really good companies in Ireland as part of their education. And that's our contact details. So if you want to see access to the colleges and the North American representatives that are available for your questions, the best place to go is the educationIreland.ca site, and just connect with the colleges. They'll have the designated rep contact details. That's my email if you have further questions for me. Of course, they're on Facebook and Instagram, and they have some great YouTube videos that you can show your students. So I'm going to end it there. It's been a great presentation, and I'm going to just show the chat room and see if we've got some questions. And I see some people but also put in some I'll answer some Q&A. So I think they've all been answered. If anybody has anything else, we can continue now, but really
one
like
question, Sarah.
Yeah.
So Kel has asked, if one of my students is applying to one medical program, do they still have to use Atlantic Bridge, or can they apply directly to the particular institution? So I might ask if it's okay for each of the respective institutions that have medical programs, maybe just to answer that in the chat, if that would be possible, please, as it might depend basing on the course itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we're going to circulate the slides, so you'll get a recording, so you'll hear all this, including me on mute, so that'll be fun. But yes, you'll get, and you can certainly circulate that to your colleagues.
So I think there's a question about if there's any colleges in Northern Ireland are involved in the program, and October 2nd.
I think Queen's Belfast, I don't think they are. No, not that I am aware of. Queen's University Belfast, yeah. But it gets updated regularly, so it will be on the educationinireland.ca site, the college that are participating, and the registration there as well for the fair. So yeah, even if you want to pop in for an hour on the Saturday and just talk to one person, that's completely okay. And whatever time you have, they'll be there to talk to you. Thanks, Rupert. They're going to send the video and presentation plus an information pack that you can share with your students about the undergraduate virtual fair. Again, I really appreciate you all coming out. I know it's later in Ontario for some of you folks, and some of the ones at BC probably want to head home, which is perfectly reasonable. I'm sure it's been a really busy month for you all. But again, I really appreciate you coming out, and I hope to see you on the 2nd. So please don't forget to register and circulate the registration with your students. Just wait and see if there's any more questions. And now you know where to reach us, so please feel free to reach out anytime.